In the contemporary era, reception theory teaches us that the popular reputation of Greek mythological material is inherently affected by the ways in which it is made accessible for general audiences, through children's renditions of ancient Greece, through blockbuster remakes of classical myth, and through narrative adaptations on a variety of digital platforms, whether formal, such as video games and VR technology, or informal, which encompasses micro-receptions. In this case, passing characterizations of mythological figures found on social media sites such as Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, etc. These small receptions are consequential of the unprecedented availability of classical material in the 21st century. The practicalities of accessing Greek and Roman mythology are as easy as having the technological means for a Google search. Little research has been conducted into the general impact of these micro-receptions, and yet their influence is clear to those of us who teach inter-university courses on Greco-Roman mythology. These small receptions of classical myth provide both a window into teaching material in an easily adaptable manner to students who are familiar with contemporary versions of ancient mythology, and highlight the absence or subversion of what we might deem problematic material. But the way that we teach what is considered obscene or problematic to a contemporary student cohort can be enhanced by these micro-receptions. The reputation of Hades and Persephone among the many digital micro-receptions that they experience is fairly innocuous, in part due to their appearances in the mythological material. Hades and Persephone, while important and well-known gods among the Greek canon, only appear in a few mythic cycles. The roles that they do inhabit through their myths tend towards the uninvolved variety. Hades' wrath is only to be invoked by those who overtly and obviously disrespect his domains, and he is even successfully petitioned by Orpheus to retrieve Eurydice from the underworld. In superficial comparison to his siblings, and by the standards of the ancients themselves, Hades is, for the most part, a pretty relaxed god. And while Persephone's own wrath is incited a time or two, she's often portrayed as kind and understanding, in deference to her role as a leader within the underworld setting. Persephone's contemporary treatment is affected by her perceived control over her marital situation in the ancient texts, which is where the problematic material is often removed or rewritten. Most translations of the sources name the marriage myth between the two figures as the rape of Persephone, which is not commonly discussed within the context of these micro-receptions. Instead, Persephone's name change from Kore, or maiden, to Persephone, or destroyer, is often referenced as a sort of proof of Persephone's autonomy in relation to her career change. Thus, Hades and Persephone are often upheld as the most palatable gods to the contemporary tastes in relationship dynamics. These characterizations are widespread enough for the students of the 2021 Myths of the Ancient Greek World class at the University of Newcastle to volunteer this information when questioned over the extent of their knowledge of the Greek myths in the early weeks of the semester. These micro-receptions are not limited to the Greek mythological figures that are most compatible to a contemporary sensibility. One needs only a cursory search on any social media site to find blogs dedicated to upholding these characterizations. At Texts from Mount Olympus is one such catalogue of these micro-receptions, and the author of the page feeds into the commonly accepted reputations of the Greek gods: Zeus as a womanizer in the extreme, Apollo and Artemis as representing contemporary queer perspectives, Athena as the ultimate feminist icon, and so on. This platform specifically characterises Persephone as overtly, sometimes even aggressively comfortable with her sexuality, and somewhat dominating partner to Hades. In comparison, Hades is quite submissive to his wife, and is occasionally shown with humorized versions of mental health symptoms. Their relationship is usually at the forefront of these micro-receptions. They are presented as involved and attentive to their partner, providing a strong and healthy bond when compared to Hades' divine siblings. While the topics of sexual assault, incest, bestiality, and other uncomfortable subjects that are at the forefront of these mythical narratives are not completely ignored in the context of these limited receptions, they are often trivialized or downplayed as minor contributions. This is just one example of many, and only one form of media among the options available. Similar characterizations take place on platforms such as TikTok, in which the short videos provide different opportunities for extended narratives, such as the videos of Joey Swift, who performs as numerous mythological characters. It is within the context of these receptions that many students are developing their first understandings of Greco-Roman mythology, which presents both issues and advantages to the teaching of university-level mythology courses. Lack of widespread awareness on the difficult or distressing topics involved in the Greco-Roman corpus and how they should be approached in terms of the contextual value of the actions themselves do make for some contention within a classroom setting. The use of trigger warnings, which has seen a significant uptick in recent years, are necessary in the teaching of sexual assault, especially the ways in which it is presented within the Greek myths. There are numerous news articles and think pieces that consider the advantages and pitfalls of adding trigger warnings to potentially distressing university courses, and the inherent overlaps with topics such as censorship and free speech. What many among the academic community stress about their use is that while some content may be distressing, it is still important to include, to be educated, and to discuss in critical settings. The classical discipline is no stranger to censorship of material considered inappropriate for students, and it has been a long and arduous process to convince the educational systems to teach the mythological texts in their entirety. Historically, tensions between the Greco-Roman canon and the values of a Christian-led education system have affected which parts of the mythical material are taught, and beyond this, who they were taught to. The historical gatekeeping of the classics discipline is very well documented. And so introducing these topics to tertiary students has become a delicate balancing act of remaining true to the Greek material and context, and ensuring that classrooms, either physical or virtual, remain safe spaces for students who might experience distress at such topics. Micro-receptions are valuable tools in the integration of the ancient material with the contemporary mindset. The awareness of these micro-receptions can be effectively utilised in classroom contexts in order to engage and teach students in the contemporary era. Volunteering information found on these platforms should be encouraged by both student and tutor, and this has the capacity to introduce those difficult conversations regarding sexual violence, incest, and so on, within a space that enables ease of discussion. During the tutorials for Myths of the Ancient Greek World, students and tutors both engaged with these micro-receptions as a foundation to build on the knowledge of the Greek mythological canon. And while the language tended to veer towards that colloquial characterization of the gods and mortals in ancient Greece, it was clear in the course outcomes that our approach was effective in stoking enthusiasm for the classics among the student cohort.